Hello and welcome to the first session of the OE paper PR and advertising, where we will be looking into the world of advertising and also the discipline of public relations as part of this course. In this first session, we will be firstly going through the syllabus broadly to understand what all topics we will be covering through the span of this course. And also we'll try to kickstart the first unit and try to finish a small topic within that in this first session itself. So let's get into the syllabus of this subject. So the first unit is about advertising in general, trying to understand the basic concept, understanding the history of advertising. The first subunit actually covers the concept, nature, definition, and history. And in the second subunit, we'll be looking at the role, objectives, functions, and significance of advertising, and basically its place in the world today. 1.3 would be looking at different tools of advertising. We'll have a broad overview of what kind of different techniques are being used for advertising, what kind of media are used, where is it being implemented. 1.4 is the role of advertising in marketing, trying to understand the importance of advertising in the case of businesses, individuals, organizations, and trying to understand how important it is for marketing departments in different kind of organizations. 1.5 is going to be about the role of advertising in society, trying to understand what kind of role advertising plays in shaping the morale of the public, the taste of the public. We'll also be looking at public service announcements, PSAs, as you've seen in theaters when you go for a film that plays in the starting. So these are generally designed to bring about change in the attitudes of public towards certain things and change behavior, attitudes in general. So we'll be looking at that in the first unit. The second unit is also about advertising. We'll be looking at advertising production, which is trying to understand how advertisements are made, who makes them, what all goes into making an advertisement in general. So 2.1, we will be looking at advertising agencies. These are firms or companies which actually make advertisements, what goes into them, as in who are the people who are in these agencies, what is the organizational structure, what are the different processes that go into making an advertisement in each of these organizations. 2.2 is going to be looking at ethical issues in advertising, basically trying to see where do we draw the line in what to advertise, how to advertise, what are the do's and don'ts, etc. 2.3, we'll be getting into the nitty-gritties of how an advertisement is made. Copywriting, slogan writing. Slogan writing would include the taglines that you see for almost every kind of brand or any kind of product or idea that they're trying to sell. Visualization is trying to come up and build a concept around the visual language that you're going to use, even if it's a newspaper advertisement or a television advertisement. You try to understand what kind of visual language you're choosing. 2.4 is going to be looking at script writing and storyboarding, which is to write down the finer details of what plays out in your ad, if it's a television ad, or if in case you need to actually make a detailed script, you will probably go for storyboarding as well, where you will be drawing down different frames and trying to understand what comes in terms of the screenplay of your ad. 2.5 is going to look at the process of ad filmmaking. We'll be looking at pre-production, production, and the post-production of advertisements, what goes into making an advertisement. So from unit 2, we jump to unit 3, which is the starting of understanding public relations. Similar to the first unit, you will have topics which give you a brief idea of what public relations is. Concept, nature, definition, and history in subunit 3.1. Similarly, roles, objectives, functions, and the significance of public relations 3.2. 3.3, we'll be looking at a brief history of public relations in the early 20th century, when people were trying to bring up the need for a discipline like public relations, and how it has actually shaped how we actually speak as individuals and organizations, which is why you have the emergence of corporate communication along with it. 3.4 is understanding various concepts that are very which lie at the foundation of public relations, such as publicity, propaganda, basically how well a message is transmitted to a crowd and how you can design that message to make sure that the public receives it in a certain way. 3.5 is digital PR, sort of rooted in the world that we see nowadays, to understand the digital space and what is required in the new environments that we are, new media environments that we are actually basing our operations in. Unit 4 is the last unit, and we will be looking at public relations implementation. 4.1 is about PR in brand building. As you know, PR mostly deals with brands and maintaining the health of certain brands. So you will be looking at how you can use public relations in brand building. 4.2 is going to be looked at different sites where PR is implemented, house journals, press conferences, press releases, exhibitions, and different advertising forums, and media tours. 4.3 is a lot more industry specific. You would be looking at how to write or what are the differences in actually writing public relations statements or maintaining the PR for different industries such as sports, where you would have teams and organizations, entertainment and celebrity management about individuals, film production companies, different kinds of media related to entertainment, and political PR, where you have different kind of an approach to public relations when it comes to the political field. You need to understand not just individuals as politicians, but also large organizations like political parties, which represents the needs of people who are subscribing to their values. 4.4 is going to be about the importance of public relations in contemporary societies. We are in changing social and political environment. This subunit is going to be about understanding the role of public relations and why we actually need to evolve the way public relations is being, let's say, practiced right now. So what was done before and what is being done right now and how it is evolving as a discipline. 4.5 would look at laws and ethics in PR, PRSI and IPRA codes. These are called codes of conduct for public relations professionals, people who actually implement public relations, actually make sure that this is done in the proper way. We also look at the responsibilities of a public relations officer or a PRO, and that winds up the OE paper for you guys at about public relations and advertising. So we will jump into the first unit, Introduction to Advertising, and try to see the basic picture and understand the basic concepts of advertising. So what is the basic concept of advertising? It is a mass communication tool, which is essentially in paid form by a firm or an individual, and the ultimate purpose of which is to give information, develop attitudes, and induce action, which are useful to the advertiser. So at its core, it is a tool of mass communication. It is a tool where you communicate to another person, people, organization, or a section that you have deemed as the target audience, which is in paid form. You usually involves some kind of monetary transaction happening by a firm or an individual, and the ultimate purpose of which is to give information, which is to provide more information, build awareness, develop attitudes that change the mentality of people who is actually who are the receiving end of this message, or bring about any certain behavioral change in them taking in this message. And then the most important part is make sure that they go out and do what you are asking them to do. In this sense, it would be buying a product, understanding an idea, subscribing to a certain value, can be anything. So the last part is inducing action, which are useful to the advertiser, not just for the advertiser, but also for the original manufacturer or where the source of the message is from. Advertisers presents and uphold the ideas, commodities, and services of a recognized advertiser, which provides as a communication link between the producer and the potential buyers. It gives the information to the would-be buyers who are interested in seeking the information about a product and the manufacturer. So not only is it how do you say, a source of awareness for the buyer, but also it acts as a link between the person who is actually trying to sell something, can be a product or an idea, who's trying to sell something, and reach the eventual last end of the supply chain, which is the consumer. So advertising acts as the bridge, that gap, basically that bridges this gap between the person who makes a goods or service and the person who consumes it. The nature of advertising nowadays, it has become an integral part in today's marketing scenario and is very much mandatory aspect. In fact, in earlier times, advertising was not given as much emphasis as it is being given today, because now you have audiences that are far and wide. You have people connected from all over the world all the time, so you have the potential to reach anywhere. So you would want to advertise. And why would you need to advertise to a larger audience? Because you cannot do it like you did in previous times, where you used to have door-to-door salesmen or people actually shouting out in towns and having your local shops. You would have more reach. You would need more reach, and you would want to reach a lot more people with whatever you are trying to sell. The Institute of Practitioners in Advertising defines the term as advertising presents the most persuasive possible selling message to the right prospects for this product or service at the lowest possible cost. So if you break down that definition into three, you can see that one, it is about the message and the way the message is being told, which is in the most persuasive possible way. Second part, who are we selling it to? To the right prospects for the product or service. And the right prospects, which would mean the target audience. Who are we selling it to? Who do we want? Who do we want to buy this? So, and the third part would be at the lowest possible cost. You're trying to reach a lot more people, so you would obviously want to reduce your cost. Here we have a combination of creativity, marketing research, and economic media buying, the three parts of the definition that I just told you. Creativity in designing the message, marketing research in understanding who you want to sell it to, and economic media buying in the sense how do you efficiently and most effectively convey your message. Advertising may cost a lot of money, but that cost is justified if it works effectively and economically, just like we said. The role of advertising. What is the role of advertising? Advertising may be taken as the most efficient ways of reaching people with product information. Like I said, door-to-door salesmen, we still have them right now, but how efficient do you think they would be if you were trying to reach a huge amount of population that you usually reach through a newspaper or a television media or a radio medium? You would actually have it. I mean, you can't obviously reach everybody by going to each person's home, knocking on the door and trying to sell something, convincing them. But you have advertising which takes care of that aspect and trying to reach different people in different places through cheaper ways. Advertising presents a mass persuasion apart from disseminating information to the prospective buyers about the product and the producer. While creating awareness and popularity, it seeks to persuade. So the whole aspect or the whole soul of advertising is to persuade people to change their minds about something, or not just change their minds, maybe stick on to something that they already like. So brand loyalty is where that is seen. You want to stick on to some certain thing, so you reinforce the message of how good your product is. So how well you actually shape your message and how you design your message, who you want to sell it to, and what is the best way of reaching them, is all that advertising is about at its core. It is a most effective and extensive and less expensive way of creating contacts. History of advertising. History of advertising is also a very well studied area, where we've seen advertising from way back from ancient times. People used to advertise in different ways. We've gotten through excavations, we've gotten papyruses, we've gotten stone tablets, print blocks like the one that you see right now in your screen. The image is actually from a shop in Jinan province in China, and it is from the 10th century AD, where a person called Liu is actually selling needles. So you can see that in the printing block what is transcribed and the translation given there. We buy high quality steel rods and make fine quality needles to be ready for use at home in no time. So very simple language. You can see that the same language is being used nowadays. Even the ads that you see on your TV or you hear on your radio or you see on the newspapers, you would see similar ads itself. I mean, similar ads in the sense you would see the same language being used by people to sell their products, about one manufacturer or owner or producer actually making his consumer base aware of his product, and letting him know that I produce high quality goods. In this case, I make fine quality needles which are ready for use at home in no time. So ready to use, same packaging format and same language of advertising that we see even nowadays. It's just that the way in which we actually advertise has changed. The media that is used, the tools and techniques that we have at our disposal to advertise is completely different. So these are examples of trademarks. Trademarks are, how do you say, they are markings basically of belonging. Basically, you can see in this print block itself that there is an image which indicates that this certain person's shop is identified with this certain image, and that is a trademark. Next time somebody sees a product somewhere else, they would understand, yes, this is from Leo's needle shop, where I can understand from the trademark that it is from his shop and it's a product of such and such quality. The other ways in medieval times were town criers, where people used to shout out the product in the middle of a town square or somewhere where people used to gather and advertise in such a way. So they would be telling that there would be bread sold at this certain bakery during this time. They are town criers because they have to cry out and sing praises of the products that they actually wanted to sell. Signboards is another thing which obviously got modernized as into the hoardings that we see nowadays on top of buildings, huge flex boards. There used to be signboards outside the shops, in the streets, letting people know what they are selling and what the shop is all about. You have a huge change in the way people advertise after the advent of the printing press, which made let's say all any kind of printing material cheaper and accessible for people. So people started actually printing out their advertisements in the form of pamphlets, small 1 sheet, 2 sheet papers, where they would actually give out advertise or give out information about the product that they want to sell. Advert cards are collectibles which are very fun to collect actually, and they are hugely priced nowadays, because in the 17th century you had a lot of advert cards made by different small companies, and they would have funny pictures, they would have taglines, they would have, these were actually advertising for certain brands. You also had news journals being printed after the advent of the printing press. Obviously, you would have the newspaper industry gaining a lot of momentum. And post the industrialization period, industrial revolution, and when we started having different kinds of mass communication techniques, advertising went on to a whole different league itself. Newspapers, as you can see the ad there on your slides, it's a 1916 advertisement during the First World War, advertising for cigarettes, Kenilworth cigarettes, and you can see the imagery, which is something that ties up to the war and the period that and the life the people are living there. So you have different mass communication techniques being brought in to advertise properly. Newspapers, radio, television, these are all prime real estate for advertisers, because not only are they expensive, but you can actually use them to reach a fairly large audience, which was very difficult before. Like you saw the previous ones, they were all limited to a certain space of your town, or basically you would have to go and spend a lot more time and energy to go to another place and actually advertise by yourself. Imagine a town crier actually going to a town by town and trying to sell his product by screaming at the top of his lungs about the product. So now you don't have to do that, because you have airwaves in the form of radio and television actually helping you bring your message to, or send your message to, a lot of people in different places. So you break that limitation of space and time at that point. What are the objectives of advertising? Now, what is advertising trying to achieve? The purpose of advertising is to sell something, a product, a service, or an idea. The real objective of advertising is effective communication between goods and clients and increasing awareness. Like we said earlier, awareness is key. Now, what are the objectives? It is to make an immediate sale. Now, your whole point of advertising is to make sure that the people actually go out and do something about it. When they actually go and do something, you are building up demand, which is the second point, to build primary demand, which gives you a base for understanding what your target audience is, how they behave, what are their requirements in terms of the objective. To introduce a price deal, we have seen all of these things in the products that we consume every day, about discounts, etc., and trying to make the product more attractive to the buyer. To build brand recognition or brand insistence, this is the brand loyalty part I was talking about, trying to make sure that the brand that you're trying to reinforce the message that you're saying to make sure that people keep buying a product. To help salesmen by building an awareness of a product among retailers, to make sure that the people who are helping you sell your product understand the product very well, and through the retail chain you actually make sure that the end consumer from the starting get to understand what the product is and buy it or subscribe to that value. To create a reputation for service, reliability, and research. This fairly good example would be the toothpaste that you see as an advertisement on TV about 9 out of 10 doctors recommending a certain toothpaste. So, although we know that the person sitting there with that coat may not be a doctor, just an actor in the advertisement, we still see that, and something hits in our head that okay, a lot of people who are professionally who are in this profession are actually recommending this certain product. So that is the brand actually advertising for its reliability. You're telling that we have it is based on very research and are of the highest quality. To increase the market share, which is what everybody tries to do, you try to get your product out to more people within the certain market. You either increase your share or ultimately increase the size of the market itself and get a bigger pie for yourself. The functions of advertising are more or less similar to the objectives, but what do they actually do instead of what are they trying to achieve? What do they actually do? A normal characteristic of advertising is to create primary demand for a product category rather than for a specific brand. It is believed that the product advertising must give stress on brand name. So what are the functions? To distinguish products from their competitors, basically to make your product stand out from the other options available in the market. To communicate product information, you are actually going to be giving more awareness of the product to your end consumer so that they can make a better choice and they can understand why yours is better than the others or why yours is different from the others. To urge product use, obviously, to that people will change their behavioral attitudes or in some cases stick onto their certain choices, your same brand again. To expand product distribution, so the more people that gets to know about your product, obviously the more expand your reach in terms of how the expand consumer base, to be very simple. To increase the brand preference, like something we would understand what kind of people who are your consumers will like. To reduce the overall sale cost, like I told about door-to-door salesman and the importance of actually sending your message out to a lot more people, you would obviously be lowering your cost to quite a big amount. So we'll the rest of the portions in the second set. So till then, this is the first session. Thank you.